Welcome back occultists to a new video. According to demandsage.com, around 51.97% of the world's population uses Snapchat. These stories are a testament to how one can never be too careful when navigating the internet. If you are new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Let's begin. In the digital age, where anonymity cloaks the intentions of strangers, I, Jenna, learned a terrifying truth. Some monsters don't lurk in the shadows, they hide behind screens. This is my story, a tale of how a seemingly innocent interaction on Snapchat spiraled into a nightmare that still haunts my dreams. It started harmlessly enough. A new user, RyanCute_93, added me on Snapchat. His profile picture was charming, the kind that makes you pause, a warm smile, bright eyes, and an air of approachable mystery. We struck up a conversation. It was casual at first, discussions about music, movies, and our daily lives. He was funny, flirtatious, and, most importantly, he seemed genuinely interested in me. As days turned into weeks, our conversations grew more personal. Ryan had this way of making me feel special, as if out of everyone in the digital world, he had chosen me. I found myself eagerly awaiting his messages, his virtual presence a beacon of light in my otherwise mundane routine. One night, the tone of our conversation shifted. Ryan suggested we exchange more intimate photos. Flattered by his attention and enticed by his charm, I acquiesced. It felt daring, a little risque, but with Ryan, I felt safe. That's when the nightmare began. A few days later, Ryan's demeanor changed. He became demanding, aggressive. He revealed his true intentions in a chilling message. He was extorting me. The photos I had sent him, those private, intimate moments, were now his leverage. He wanted money, a large sum, or he would release the photos online. Panic set in, a cold, paralyzing fear. I realized I had been naive, a pawn in his cruel game. I begged, pleaded for his mercy, but my words fell on deaf ears. He gave me a deadline, 48 hours, to pay up or face the consequences. I was trapped, ensnared in his web of deceit. I couldn't go to the police, the shame and fear of exposure were too great. I couldn't confide in my friends or family, the thought of their judgment, their disappointment, was unbearable. As the hours ticked away, the walls of my world seemed to close in. Ryan's messages grew more menacing, a constant reminder of the power he held over me. I was a prisoner to his whims, my every waking moment consumed by dread. In desperation, I scoured the internet for solutions, for anyone who had faced a similar predicament. The stories I found only deepened my despair, tales of lives ruined, reputations destroyed. The deadline loomed closer, a guillotine poised to sever my ties to the life I once knew. I lay awake at night, my mind a whirlwind of fear and self-loathing. How could I have been so foolish, so blind? And then, the unexpected happened. On the eve of the deadline, Ryan's account vanished. His messages, his threats, all gone as if they had never been. Relief washed over me, a brief respite in the storm of my torment. But it was short-lived. That night, I received an email from an anonymous address. It contained a single link and a message, "Watch this." Trembling, I clicked on the link. It led to a video, a compilation of my Snapchat photos, the intimate images I had shared with Ryan, now edited into a grotesque montage. The video ended with a message, "Share or suffer." The anonymous sender was playing a different game, a more sadistic version of Ryan's extortion. They wanted me to be an accomplice in my own humiliation, to spread the shame further. I was at the brink of despair, the weight of my situation crushing me. But in that dark moment, a spark of defiance ignited within me. I refused to be a victim any longer. I contacted the police, my fear of exposure outweighed by my desire for justice. The investigation was slow, the leads few and far between. But the officers were kind, understanding. They reassured me that I wasn't alone, that this wasn't my fault. Days turned into weeks, and slowly, the shadow of the nightmare began to recede. The police eventually traced the emails to a group of cyber criminals, predators who preyed on the vulnerabilities of others. Ryan, or whoever he was just a facade, a mask worn to lure unsuspecting victims. The video was never shared publicly, a small mercy in the grand scheme of things. But the scars remained, deep and jagged, a constant reminder of my ordeal. I learned to be more cautious, more guarded in the digital world. The experience had changed me, hardened me. I became an advocate for online safety, sharing my story to warn others of the dangers that lurk behind the screen. The sharp sting of a breakup leaves a void, a space where love once resided. My name is Sarah, and in the wake of parting ways with Michael, my boyfriend of 3 years, I found myself adrift in that void. My friends, ever so caring, suggested I needed a distraction, a way to move on. That's how I found myself on Snapchat, dipping my toes into the unpredictable waters of online dating. It wasn't long before I connected with someone, Mark. His profile was a collage of adventurous photos and witty captions. He was charismatic, his messages sprinkled with humor and intrigue. Our conversations were a balm to my aching heart, a glimmer of excitement in my otherwise mundane days. As our virtual connection deepened, Mark suggested we meet in person. Eager to turn the digital into reality, I agreed. He gave me an address, a place he said was special to him. "It's a surprise," he texted, a playful edge to his words. The day of our date arrived. I dressed with care, a flutter of nervous excitement in my stomach. The address led me to the outskirts of town, to a neighborhood fringed by the woods, where houses stood like forgotten sentinels of a bygone era. I found the place, but confusion gripped me. It was an old house, its structure an echoing remnant of grander times, now surrendered to decay. The windows were boarded, the garden overgrown. It didn't make sense. Why here? Doubt crept in, a creeping vine of unease. But a part of me, the part still yearning for love's touch, pushed the doubt aside. Maybe this was just Mark's idea of an unconventional date. I approached the house, my footsteps hesitant. The front door was ajar, creaking softly in the wind. "Mark?" I called out, my voice a tentative whisper against the silence. No answer came, just the eerie stillness of the house. I stepped inside, the air thick with dust and the weight of forgotten memories. The place was barren, save for a few pieces of decrepit furniture. It felt like stepping into a photograph, a snapshot of desolation. "Mark, this isn't funny," I said, a tinge of fear coloring my words. The house seemed to absorb the sound, the silence a tangible entity. I explored the rooms, each more desolate than the last. Then, I heard it, a soft creak from above, like the hesitant step of someone trying not to be heard. My heart raced, a frantic drumbeat in the oppressive quiet. "Who's there?" I called, my bravado faltering. No response. Just the creaking again, closer this time. Panic surged, a cold tide. I turned to leave, but stopped dead in my tracks. There, at the foot of the stairs, stood a figure. It was a man, but not Mark. He was older, his face a roadmap of scars and hollows, his eyes empty pits of madness. "Who are you?" I stammered, my back pressing against the wall. He didn't speak. Instead, he took a step forward, a slow, deliberate movement. I glimpsed something in his hand, a knife, its blade catching the faint light that filtered through the boarded windows. I turned and ran, my breath's ragged sobs of terror. The house was a maze, a trap that twisted and turned on itself. I could hear him behind me, his footsteps a steady echo of my own. I found a room, the door hanging off its hinges. Inside was a window, half boarded, but enough for me to see freedom. I heaved at the boards, my fingers raw and bleeding. The door creaked open behind me. I didn't dare look back. With a final, desperate effort, I tore the board free and scrambled through the window, tumbling into the overgrown garden. I ran, the brambles tearing at my skin, the house receding into the shadows behind me. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of the street, the lights of the town a beacon of hope. The police found no one in the house. Mark's Snapchat account vanished, a ghost in the digital wind. They said the house had been empty for years, a relic of a family tragedy long forgotten. I was left with scars, both physical and emotional. The experience shattered my trust, leaving me with a fear that lingered in the quiet moments, a shadow that whispered of what might have been. But I survived. I learned to be cautious, to guard my heart against the deceptive allure of digital connections. I found strength in my resilience, a determination to not let fear define me. Sometimes, I pass by that old house, now cordoned off, a silent testament to my nightmare. And I wonder about the man, the knife, the terror I felt. But mostly, I wonder about love, how it can lead us into the light, or lure us into the darkest of shadows. Growing up in the shadow of overprotective parents, my world was a bubble, safe yet suffocating. I was Ethan, the kid who lived by rules and curfews while my friends basked in the freedom of teenage life. Their world was a tapestry woven with social media threads, a vibrant, pulsating reality I longed to be a part of. So, in a rebellious whisper against authority, I created a fake Snapchat account. It was my secret window to a world I was barred from, and for a while, it was exhilarating. Snapchat was a kaleidoscope of faces and filters, a never-ending stream of stories and snapshots. I dove into it headfirst, hungry for the connection it offered. I was careful, or so I thought, using a fake name, EthanRocks99. But in my naive eagerness, I overlooked one crucial detail, my location settings. Always on, always sharing. It started with a friend request from Mystery Mike 23. His account seemed normal enough, filled with pictures of landscapes and quotes about travel and freedom. We began chatting, and it felt good to have a new friend, someone who didn't know the real, sheltered Ethan. But soon, the messages from Mystery Mike 23 began to change. They grew more personal, more insistent. He asked about my family, my address, my daily routines. Alarm bells rang faintly in my mind, but I silenced them. I was desperate not to lose this connection, this semblance of normalcy. Then, one evening, the boundary between my digital fantasy and reality shattered. I was home alone, my parents at a dinner party, the house a silent fortress. I sat in my room, scrolling through Snapchat when I received a new snap from Mystery Mike 23. It was a picture of my own house, taken from the street. "Nice place, Ethan," the caption read. Panic surged through me, a cold tide of fear. This was no longer a game. This was real, and it was happening now. I rushed to the window, peering out into the darkness. There, standing beneath the streetlight, was a figure, cloaked in shadow. I couldn't see his face, but I knew it was him. I retreated from the window, my mind racing. I had to call the police, but my phone, it was downstairs. I crept out of my room, each step a silent plea not to be heard. The house felt different that night, each shadow a hiding place, each creak a warning. As I descended the stairs, a floorboard groaned loudly under my foot. I froze, holding my breath. And then I heard it, the subtlest sound, a whisper against the silence. The back door was opening. He was inside. I bolted, running for the phone in the kitchen. My hand shook as I dialed 911, my voice a trembling whisper as I explained the situation. The operator's calm voice was a lifeline, a promise that help was on the way. I hid in the pantry, the door closed, the darkness a small comfort. I listened as footsteps prowled through my house, a slow, deliberate hunt. I could hear him muttering to himself, a string of words that made no sense, a madman's soliloquy. Time stretched, each second a lifetime. And then, the footsteps stopped. Right outside the pantry door. My heart pounded in my ears, a drumbeat of terror. I could hear him breathing, smell the stale scent of his clothes. The door creaked open, a sliver of light cutting through the darkness. I saw his eyes first, wide and wild, gleaming in the dark. Then his hand, reaching for me. I screamed, a primal sound of fear and defiance. I kicked, lashed out with all my strength. There was a moment of struggle, a dance of desperation. And then, the sound of sirens, the cavalry arriving just in time. The police found him there, his grip still tight around my ankle. He was a man lost to madness, his mind a labyrinth of delusions. He had found me through my Snapchat, followed the breadcrumbs of my digital life to my front door. The aftermath was a blur. My parents, their faces a mix of relief and anger. The police, their questions a steady stream. And me, a boy who had sought freedom and found terror. I learned that night that the world is not always kind, that some shadows hide monsters. I deleted my Snapchat account, turned away from the digital world. The experience had scarred me, left a mark that no filter could hide. But the biggest change was in my parents. They no longer saw me as a child to be coddled, but as a young man who had faced his worst nightmare. Their rules relaxed, their trust in me grew. As for me, I grew too. I learned to cherish the reality I had, the safety of a life that, while sometimes dull, was mine to live without fear. I had peered into the abyss, and in doing so, I had found a strength I never knew I had. But sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I still hear the echo of footsteps, the creak of a door, and I remember the eyes that glinted in the dark, a reminder of the night my digital footprint led a monster to my door.